Recently, I found another example, this time out of the great state of Texas, of another bureaucrat assuming the tyrannical authority of rulership over the citizens of the state that he was hired to serve. So we'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution, where we teach the rising generation to be free. I am glad you could join me. If you'll give me just a few minutes before we get started, I do have some changes that will be happening and announcements I want to make. So first, I want to talk about some changes to the podcast. First, I want you to know I plan on going live more often, probably at least twice a month, maybe more. It really kind of depends on participation. If I get more people showing up, more people engaged in the live broadcast, well, then I'll consider doing it more and more often. But I love the live interaction. I'm also changing the time. I'm going to move it to about 8 p.m. Eastern time. I want to find a sweet spot where people on the East Coast and the West Coast can all participate and have their chance to be live and engaged. Which also leads me to my next announcement is I'm going live on more platforms. I'm going to test out a new service that will allow me to go live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. If you've got other suggestions, I'll give it a try, but that's what I've been working on lately. So I'll be able to go live on more platforms. And lastly, you may have noticed my live broadcast over the last few months, I've been using Zoom. I really like what Zoom allows me to do. See, I can go in and we can have a conversation. You know, if you ask a question, I'll still be taking questions on the comment sections of the other platforms. But the nice thing is, you have a question on Zoom, we can talk. You can be video or not, but we can have a conversation. None of this, you type in a question, I try to answer it. You may have a follow-up or something you want to do, but I've already gone on to somebody else's questions. It gets all disjointed. The Zoom room is really kind of neat. If you are interested in participating in the Zoom part of the broadcast, just head over to constitutionstudy.com/live, register for the event. You'll get an email with a link so you can join us in the Zoom platform as we are going live to all these points. I like it. I hope more and more people will join there as well. I also want to let you know of a couple of webinars I've been working on. You know, I've been trying to do a lot of in-person events, and it's been hard. Even before the COVID scare, it's hard getting people to agree to a time and location where we can meet. So I'm going more to the webinars. So this September 17th is Constitution Day. I'm doing a Constitution 101 that afternoon. It is kind of focused on school students, school-aged children. Obviously, anybody's more than happy to participate, but if you go to constitutionstudy.com/101, you can register for the event. If you cannot watch it live, register anyway, because if you're registered, I will send you a link to the recording once I get it all processed and uploaded. I'm also working on a couple of other webinars, one on presidential elections in the Electoral College. I'm planning on doing one on the Bill of Rights on December 15th. So if you'd like to participate in these, please do. And in fact, if you want to see what's coming up, head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com, click on the join the newsletter. And by signing up for the newsletter, you'll be told, I'll tell you every month what's coming up in those events so you can participate. It's a great way to keep in touch. So thank you for indulging me, taking a few minutes to tell you what's going on. With that, let's get to this story coming out of Texas. All this started when I heard about a letter from the executive director of the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, a gentleman by the name of A. Bentley Nettles, that he sent to the alcoholic beverage industry. Now, this type of letter and the directives they include, well, they're fairly common across the United States, especially in this day and age. But as I began investigating this letter, I found a worldview and a governing philosophy that is antithetical to a constitutional republic and is destructive to the rights and liberties of all Americans. And as with so many things, it seems, in 2020, it all started with COVID-19. Quoting from the letter, "Then COVID-19 hit and our worlds turned upside down. Businesses were forced to change their operations and many had to shut down. Since then, Texas has gone through various phases of reopenings and closures." Well, first of all, it was not COVID-19 that turned our world upside down. Governments, both state and local, have turned our worlds, our very lives, upside down. From executive orders to regulatory strangleholds, we have seen government after government use the excuse of keeping the people safe to turn us into cattle that they can corral, brand, and use as they see fit. Legislatures that we, the people, formed to write our laws have turned over their lawmaking power to the executive branch, and in many cases have failed to hold them accountable when they exceed the authority they've been given. All this because the experts warned of what would happen if we didn't hand over our rights to government. Now, the predictions of millions dead, hospitals overflowing, and a general collapse of society that our government officials and media pundits promoted, well, it turned out not to be true. It didn't happen. Now, as more and more evidence comes to light showing that COVID-19 was never as deadly nor as dangerous as the experts were telling us, do we see these officials loosening the restrictions they've put on us? Well, in some cases, yes. In many cases, no. And in many more cases, what we see are these restrictions being extended and expanded, resulting in the further destruction of the American system. As the evidence mounts of the ineffectiveness of masks, including reports from the very agencies promoting these mask mandates, we see everyone from governments to businesses to everyday people infringing on the rights of others based on flawed science, fictitious statistics, and the general fear being promoted by so many. Texas is not alone in this, but it is the focus of today's article. From the letter, quote, under the governor's executive order GA-28, which currently determines how businesses may operate, restaurants are open for limited capacity seating, and bars, which derive 51% or more of their revenue from the sale of alcohol for on-premises consumption, are closed. See, like so many of the emergency orders, Texas GA-28 violates not only the Constitution of the state of Texas, but that of the United States as well. Let's take a look at just a few of these violations before we go on. From the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, quote, all free men, when they form a social compact, have equal rights, and no man or set of men is entitled to exclusive, separate public emoluments or privileges, but is in consideration of public services. You see, all free people in Texas have equal rights. At least they're supposed to. Yet under Governor Abbott's order, some business owners have more rights than others. For example, religious services, local governments, child care services, even youth camps and recreational programs, they are exempt from occupancy limits. Further, outdoor areas and events are also exempt unless they happen to be a sporting event, a swimming pool, a water park, museum, a library, something like that. Barbershops, hair salons, and nail salons, massage establishments, and other personal or beauty services, well, they're exempt. Where does Governor Abbott get the authority to treat business owners differently? Are they not free citizens of the state of Texas? Do they not have the equal right to enjoy their business and the benefits of their labor? Even if these were recommendations rather than fake laws promulgated by the executive branch, look at how stupid they are. Does anyone really think the virus won't infect you if you're in a government office? What makes the virus more dangerous at an outdoor event just because it's a sporting event, a water park, or a zoo? Does the governor really believe you are less likely to get infected at a piercing studio than a doctor's office with the same 6-foot social distancing requirements? And please explain why the virus cares how much of a business's sales come from alcohol or from the clock on the wall to determine if it will infect somebody. Does anyone really think that your local bar, grill, or restaurant suddenly becomes infectious if more than 51% of their gross receipts come from selling alcohol? And does the virus suddenly become more infectious after 12:01 a.m.? From Article 1, Section 17 of the Texas Constitution, no person's property shall be taken, damaged, or destroyed for or applied to public use without adequate compensation being made, unless by the consent of the such person, and only if the taking, damage, or destruction is for the ownership, use, and enjoyment of the property, notwithstanding an incidental use, by the state, a political subdivision of the state, or the public at large, an entity granted the power of eminent domain under law, or the elimination of urban blight on a particular parcel of property. You see, the state is not allowed to take, damage, or destroy a person's property unless it's for public use or the elimination of urban blight. Yet Governor Abbott's order takes away, and in many cases destroys, the businesses of millions of Texans without even the pretext of public use. Article 1, Section 19, no citizen of this state shall be deprived of life, liberty, property, privilege, or immunities, or in any manner disenfranchised except by the due course of the law of the land. The state cannot legally deprive you of life, liberty, property, privileges, or immunities without due course of law. You may be more familiar with the term due process, but due course is almost synonymous. From Webster's 1828 dictionary, course means stated and orderly method of proceeding, a usual manner. For example, he obtained redress in due course of law. This executive order, along with dozens like it across the country, deprives citizens of so much without course or process that protects their rights. Your liberty to go about freely without being forced to wear a mask, to operate your business, to even be immune from unreasonable searches and seizures are all being deprived without even the pretext that you are an actual danger to someone else. See, unless you force someone else to come in contact with you or act in a way that endangers others, there is no legal reason to restrict your movements, much less take away a property like your business. You may not think of your business as property, but as James Madison wrote, quote, "In a word, as a man is said to have a right to his property, he may equally said to have a property in his rights. That is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where arbitrary restrictions, exemptions, and monopolies deny to part of its citizens that free use of their faculties and free choice of their occupations, which not only constitute their property in the general sense of the word, but are the means of acquiring property strictly so called. Governor Abbott's order also prohibits outdoor gatherings of more than 100 people. Well, unless they are privileged enough to have been given an exemption in the order, or they get permission from their mayor or county judge. Imagine going to have to get permission from a government to exercise a constitutionally protected right. From Article 1, Section 17 of the Texas Constitution, the citizens shall have the right in peaceable manner to assemble together for their common good and to apply to those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievances or other purposes by petition, address, or remonstrance. Now, I'm sure by now someone has pointed out that under the Texas Emergency Powers Act, the governor has the authority to suspend laws when an emergency is declared. While the Texas Emergency Powers Act does include language about suspending provisions of regulatory statutes, it does not give him the authority to suspend all laws, and neither does it supersede the Texas Constitution, which happens to state in Article 1, Section 28, "No power of suspending laws in this state shall be exercised except by the legislature." In fact, Texas went so far in its constitution to make sure there wasn't any question about the ability of government to regulate or infringe on the rights of their citizens. See, they added Section 29 to their Bill of Rights. Quote, "To guard against transgressions of the high powers herein delegated, we declare that everything in this Bill of Rights is accepted out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolate, and all laws contrary thereto or to the following provisions shall be void." So all the laws and actions of the executive branch under those laws, that are the ones that are contrary to anything in the Bill of Rights of the state of Texas, they're void. They're empty. They're meaningless. Yet here we have a letter from a part of the executive branch attempting to enforce these illegal and void laws. Back to Director Nettles' letter. Quote, "The biggest challenge I see lies with industry members who choose to operate in violation of the governor's executive order. Recently, we have spoken with business owners who tell us they don't intend to follow the orders. So if the parts of this executive order are acting under laws that the Texas Constitution declares are void, how can an officer who has sworn or affirmed an oath to support the Texas Constitution enforce a law that is not valid? How can an executive branch of a state do not only what it is not allowed, but what it is forbidden by their commission as officers under the Texas Constitution? Put another way, how can someone be punished for violating a law that is void? Well, the answer is simple. The people of Texas and of all the states, they've let it happen. We have not only allowed our public servants to act as our rulers, we've begun to believe it ourselves. And now those who claim the authority to rule over us are treating our rights as if they're privileges. Mr. Nettles went so far in his letter to say that the ability to own and run a business is a privilege if it happens to serve alcohol. From his letter, quote, On that note, I want to remind every member of this industry that it is a privilege to be in the alcoholic beverage business in Texas. Not everyone who wants to be in this industry qualifies to do so under the strict requirements imposed by the Alcoholic Beverage Code. Once in business, the Texas legislature has chosen to regulate this industry to protect the health and safety of our fellow Texans. No, Mr. Nettles, the ability to run a business in Texas is not a privilege, regardless of whether they serve alcohol or not. The very idea that someone would have to get permission from government to do business is not only anathema to our constitutional republic, it was one of the laws that led our founding fathers to declare independence from another tyrannical government. It is the Texas laws that are used to deprive people of their property, of their businesses, and the liberty to do business that are wrong. And according to the state constitution of Texas, they are void. Mr. Nettle goes on. Furthermore, the governor's executive order is the current law of the state, and TABC will enforce it, as will other state and local government entities. As a license holder, it is your responsibility to follow the Alcoholic Beverage Code, TABC's administrative rules, and all other state laws, including executive orders. Well, as I've already shown, not only is the governor's order not the current law of the state, by the words of the Texas Constitution, it is void. It is empty. It is of no value. Continuing from the letter, I believe the vast majority of TABC's license and permit holders are acting in good faith, trying to run honest businesses and are valued members of their communities. I call on all businesses to act in this manner. TABC will gladly work with you if you are working toward voluntary compliance. If you have questions about whether you can reopen safely, please contact us. I believe the vast majority of TABC's license and permit holders are acting under duress. They are unaware of the invalid state of such laws and regulations. They have been taught to be subjects of those who they have hired to be their servants. If anyone should be encouraged to act in good faith, it should be Governor Abbott and Director Nettles. Both of them should uphold their oaths to support the constitutions both of the state of Texas and of the United States. Back to the letter. TABC agents will be out in communities across Texas this weekend, just like every other weekend, enforcing the law. Ensure your patrons are complying with social distancing and face mask requirements. While TABC is here to help, we have no tolerance for licensees who are in violation. Should TABC agents arrive at your business, I would remind them of two things. First, that the executive order is a violation both of the Texas and United States constitutions. Amendment 14 of the U.S. Constitution says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And since depriving someone of their liberty or property without due process of law is a deprivation of a right protected by the Constitution of the United States, doing so under color of law is a federal crime. 18 U.S.C. 242 reads, whoever under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or the laws of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year. So in the face of all this, what can the citizens of Texas do? Well, the answer to this also comes from the Constitution of the state of Texas. See, Article 1, Section 2 reads, all political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. The faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a republican form of government, and, subject to this limitation only, they have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. You see, the power does not legitimately belong to those in government. It belongs to the free people of Texas. See, as long as you maintain a constitutional republican form of government, you have an inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish your government. Now, I would recommend the people of Texas take a long, hard look at reforming how their government works before the only option to protect their rights is to abolish it. Better to reform your government at the ballot box than to try to abolish it on the battlefield. So, whether you live in Texas or not, I hope you found that interesting. See, it's really enlightening to me when people realize the complete power inversion. The very idea that it is a privilege to run a business is wrong. It's antithetical. It's a violation of your rights. Yet we let governments get away with this time and time again. More importantly, we let people in government abuse their power, deprive us of our rights, and we don't bother even pressing charges. It is important that we learn what our rights are and we learn how to properly defend them, and then we do it. I would encourage every person who holds a TABC license to send a letter to Mr. Nettles reminding him that he is their servant, not the other way around. That they have a right to do business, not a privilege. That their businesses, including their licenses, are their property. And if you deprive them of their property without due process of law, you are committing a federal crime. And if he continues, well, I suggest first you get rid of Governor Abbott, or at least get him to get rid of this director. And I suggest you call the FBI and press charges. He's committing a crime. You can't very well blame someone for continuing to commit a crime if they never get punished for it. We have to do it. Or we're no longer citizens. You know, Texans like to make a point that they're a republic, that they were a republic before they joined the Union. Well, it's time to start acting like it. See, in a republic, you hire people to represent you. You don't hire them to become your rulers. We need to stop thinking of people in government as our rulers and start making them think that they are our servants. Otherwise, this isn't a constitutional republic. This is some sort of oligarchy, some sort of dictatorship where we just happen to elect the people that are going to boss us around. We're going to elect our masters. They're still masters. So I hope you found that valuable. I hope you got some useful information. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, do me a couple of favors. Head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Click on that subscribe now button. Click the subscription button. Sign up for the newsletter. It's, again, keeps informed what's going on, helps me know who's involved and who's engaged. Hey, maybe share the show. I love it when I encounter people and they say, oh, we love your show, we share it and all that. That's great. Share the show, subscribe to the newsletter. Hey, leave a rating and review. I haven't really focused on this lately, but it'd be very nice if you could put a rating or review on this episode, on this podcast. Let people know when they're searching for constitutional information, this would be a good place for them to look. And if you found value, if what I'm bringing you brings value to your life, well, consider donating to the cause. Head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. You'll see a donate button. All the money that's donated through the website goes directly to keeping the Constitution Study podcast alive. I pay for hosting, I pay for software and services, equipment. All that comes from the donations. I don't pocket any of that money. So if you like this, you found it valuable, it would really help if you could over to donate. If you want to support some of the other work that we're doing, well, then head over to the store, constitutionstudy.com, hit the store button, or just go to /shop. Consider buying some of the goods. T-shirts, I'm going to put up some mugs, books, CDs. Anything you can, anything you buy through the store helps me share the Constitution Study. It helps me go to these events. It helps pay for the travel and living expenses of going to these events, which I still am trying to do. So if you can do any one of those things, I'd appreciate it greatly. If you can do more, let me know. If you can get in touch and just let me know how you're able to help, that really boosts my spirit. It helps keep me engaged and excited when I know not only am I giving you good information, but that you're finding value in it as well. And hopefully, regardless of what you do, you found enough value that you come and we'll speak again the next time on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday